We've got a clock on the wall that says it's 7 p.m. on September 18th, 2018. Call the Strategic Planning Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Here.
Jay Fisher.
Here.
Richard Flint.
Here.
Thomas Hummel.
Here.
Liz Sullivan.
Here.
Emily Swistek.
Here.
Maureen Wayne.
Here.
Tatiana Weinstein.
Here.
Beth McQuillan.
Here.
Elizabeth Hopkins.
Here.
Will Savage.
Here.
All right, everyone is here. Quorum is present. Item 2 on the agenda is opportunity for visitors to speak. Seeing no visitors, we'll move along to item 3, which is the approval of the minutes of the August 15th, 2018 Strategic Planning Committee meeting.
I make the motion to approve the minutes of the August 15th, 2018 Strategic Plan Committee meeting.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
I will second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, we'll have a vote, please.
Richard Flint.
Aye.
Thomas Hummel.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Abstain.
Emily Swistek.
Aye.
Maureen Wayne.
Aye.
Elizabeth Hopkins.
Aye.
Will Savage.
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye.
Motion passes. The minutes are approved. Item 4 on the agenda is review of the draft facility objectives and approach. Director Weinstein, you want to go over the changes that were made since the last time we met?
No problem. Okay, so we're going to start with the suggested modifications to the 2 previous drafts. The first one being facility. You'll see that I reversed number 1 and number 2. I think beginning with the update and enhance approach makes the most sense. If not, we can change that. Number 2 begins now with a verb and simplifies the statement to read, utilize universal design concepts in projected LLD facility projects instead of the rest that was there. And then number 3 now begins with a verb, and number 4 begins with a verb. And then if you move to the appendix, the suggestion was to modify the language we use when referring to the family type bathroom, and I spent many minutes looking at other institutions and what they use. There's a lot of language, but I think what we're trying to convey is an inclusive / family bathroom. I think that captures it, but if I'm open to suggestions, or if anybody else has done any research on that, that's what I put there.
I like it.
Right, any other comments on the changes that were made to the facility draft?
Well, this is, oh, sorry. This kind of recommendation doesn't have to change. I'm just wondering, number 4, their charge, LLD. Can we say that, I don't know, if it'd be easier to say delegate versus charge?
Thoughts?
Longer, did you say delegate?
Usually we delegate the.
So delegate to the LLD Physical Committee.
Right, to review it, that's what we do, or is something,
But I think it's our responsibility, right?
Yeah,
Or
but
it
we would
is.
just do a recommendation. I don't know if you would delegate.
Oh, you don't delegate,
Yeah.
okay.
Authority, yes. So
When you move something to a committee, you're referring it.
Okay, that's fine, I'm good with it.
I like refer.
So,
It's got to be, doesn't quite read right.
no,
Yeah, so that's
you can't
If
just,
you change it to refer, it doesn't read right.
correct.
Refer to LLD Physical Plan Committee.
A review of expert advice.
I think just refer is good enough. Refer,
I like refer to.
just base, yeah.
I just think,
So
yeah, you need
it's-
something.
We want the word refer as our verb, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Refer to
But I think we
LLD.
need the word to after that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
but then the rest of the sentence doesn't really
Right, that's
flow
why I
if you
think-
make it refer to.
Committee to.
I think refer, committee to review expert advice.
Or we could do A, refer to LL Physical Plant Committee, A, review expert advice and recommendations, And then B would be recommend steps, and C would be, yeah, B would be recommend steps.
So, and I think the second two makes it read fine. Refer to LLD Physical Plan Committee to review expert advice and recommend steps to achieve.
It's
The
clunky,
second-
but if you like the
clunky.
word refer better than charge.
The, down in number 14, offer patrons a food and drink option. We now have the machines, and I mean, I think that's a good thing. I like them. I think the patrons like it. I think it fits well. But also, I think since we've got that now, we could probably achieve that goal. We could probably take this out. I know it's just one small line in this, but less is more. So I think we could probably take that one out now.
Well, my understanding from the email we received was just that it's just a trial thing right now. That's not necessarily what we're going to do out of the strategic planning committee. So I think it should stay on until we've made, the final decision, because it just said that this was it's just a trial, right? We're trying it out for a month and then seeing?
Yeah, I mean,
Or did I misunderstand?
no, you got it. It is a trial. We'll see if it works. Patrons use it, see how gauge patron engagement with it. So far, so good. But I mean, I see Tom's point with we're offering it now, adding it. We could, after a month, remove it. I mean, we're still working on this.
I'm not sure what I think about this idea about removing items when we accomplish them. If we accomplish it, leave it in.
But we haven't.
Is the idea that when this expires, there'll be nothing in it?
No.
But I think the issue, Richard, is that we've already accomplished before we passed the plan.
Yeah.
So it's already been done, so why is it on our plan if it's already accomplished?
Exactly.
But it's not. Number one, we leave our mind open as to just to piggyback on Emily's thought, other ways to accomplish it, other options in the future, modifications. Just because we've already taken a step to accomplish it doesn't mean this is our final solution.
Well, to me, in my opinion, I know others disagree, but I mean, this is as far as I think I'm going to go, is a vending machines with, I mean, maybe some other minor additions, but like the cafe is completely off the table in my mind, so.
It's on the table in my mind, no pun intended.
By the time we pass or agree to the final language, will we know then, have a decision as to
Whether
whether the vending machines are keeping?
Oh, yeah. I give it a month to gauge.
I mean, but how would they get removed in a month? I mean, if it's successful, we're not gonna remove them, correct?
Right, why would we?
Yeah, and then the vendor probably wouldn't remove them if he's making money.
Right.
And the only other way he would remove it is if he's not making money and nobody's using it, and then in that
Sure.
case, I think, then it's not a demand.
There could be lots of reasons to remove it, even if he is making money. Maybe there's a problem with the supplier. Maybe corporate has different objectives or goals. So
Well, I think.
I don't think it's out of place.
I think the point is that we had the opportunity to try this out. I think the board and the committee, I should say, felt like it was a good option to offer a food or drink option. This form of that is we're trying it out. If it works after a month, then we've achieved it, I believe, in where we're at right now.
Every time there's a staff in service, and lots of other times too, security is always a big issue. It's both for new hires and to discuss new techniques. But that doesn't mean we take security off our goals, just because we've taken a step toward accomplishing it.
True, and I've had some conversations about this recently, and I think we have to go back to what a strategic plan is, and you talk about, I mean, we could put a million things in this plan, and we do a lot of things on a daily basis here, like we do, marketing and things like that, and that's in the plan now, and diversity training, and that's in the plan. But I think we have to focus on things that are kind of the big picture items. And if after a month I feel that these things are working and we're providing what we discussed in committee, I'm okay with pulling this particular thing, but, that's up to
I
the
think
committee.
I think just to summarize my point, this is an abiding goal. It's something that we're always going to try to do. It's not a one and done goal, not as I see it.
I don't agree that this is an abiding goal. We mentioned a cafe. In my opinion, I don't know that we decided on a cafe.
Oh, we did not.
decided on a food
True,
and drink
right,
option.
true.
And I think we're accomplishing that with the vending machine. If it works, great. But as far as, if we want to wait, let's see how this works out to pull it, I'm okay with that. But I think if the vending machines work out, I think we have accomplished it. Unless we've changed our mind and we're offering a full cafe. And
Do
that
we-
was not my
True.
understanding.
I think by leaving it general the way it is, we can defer that decision until, like maybe that's another thing that the facility committee could come up with a recommendation. If we leave it general, I would actually prefer to have it on there and then have some big note next to it on our website saying, accomplished. So I would prefer to leave, whether we call these goals or to-dos on there, and I would prefer to say accomplished. I mean, because if we just remove them, then we don't show our own good work, so. Sorry, I mean, that's what you want to do, right? Accomplish things.
How about this? We don't know what the status is. We're in the trial period at the moment. So after the trial period is over, as we go through this process, then we can,
We're meeting in October.
Yes.
So,
and will that be after the 38, that will be after the 30 days.
yeah, I mean, that's
So
a
at that
month from
meeting,
now.
then we can
Ish.
revisit this issue and decide, and we can, amongst the committee as a whole, whether we want to keep it in because it's been accomplished or leave it in because it's
You okay with that?
aspirational. or-
I mean, I think it should be taken out. I mean,
Well, I think, everybody heard that? And we can talk about it in October.
I mean, to me, the cafe's dead. I know people disagree, but, the community survey indicated that. I don't know where the majority of the board is in there, so I don't know why, we can wait, I guess, but I think it's.
But this doesn't indicate a cafe.
No, I understand, but, it's an accomplished goal, that is the point, so. In my mind, we could just remove it now, but, if you want to wait.
Then how do we parade our successes?
Well, it's the fact that it's here.
I know,
Our
but
success.
it could be just like a fluke it's here. Maybe somebody made a cold call on the library.
It all depends how you present it, Liz, I think.
Exactly, and
Well,
from a
if you present it
communications,
That it is a goal.
yeah, well, leave it on here and just say, we accomplished it.
Well,
I mean, later.
It doesn't have to be so black and white from vending machines straight to cafe either. Maybe it's, we find that people don't want, they rather a coffee machine instead of a Gatorade soda machine, and so it's keeping it a little more open, gives you a little more wiggle room to find the best option for us.
It's given, I could live with that, or like a coffee machine or something. I don't know if it offers coffee or not in there, but the wiggle room is a cafe is what I'm worried about.
But we're not deciding that now.
But I think it's, the community survey clearly said no cafe. Are we gonna go around that community survey?
But this doesn't say a cafe. It says offer patrons a food, drink
That's my point,
option.
though. We are now,
It-
so.
Right, I see both.
Well, like number 5 says, reconfigure and update HVAC components. So if we replace one piece of the HVAC, are we done? Is that, can we mark it off our list?
No, if we were to complete the whole thing before we finalize this, then you can make an argument, yes, but we're not gonna complete
Well, so
it.
then, are we for sure saying that this is, 14 is complete, done, it's never gonna change?
In my mind, yeah.
Well, but what if it's as simple as like, people like, hey, we don't want these snacks, we want this snack, or we want, instead of candy and chips, we
You
want.
could change it out, that doesn't mean, that's, the context is there, though, so.
Well, then why does it bother you that much?
Because it's, I don't want to leave wiggle room for a cafe, I want to nip that in the bud now, the community.
I don't even know where the cafe idea is coming from. Where's that coming from?
I think some people want a cafe, but it's their minority opinion, so.
And you're the minority opinion right now about keeping this out, you and Marjorie, so.
What's the rest?
Can we just leave it and move on? And because this is not done, you know, we're still working on it, and we can revisit it next month and after the trial period and see where we're at, right?
Yeah, I
Can we just
support, yeah, I agree with that.
move on?
too. Yes.
Could
Do you have
could I?
a separate
Oh, sorry.
comment, Emily?
No, that's it.
No, okay.
I was just going to say on number 3, could we just cross off the last words, for first-time and regular users? Because I think if we create a hospitable foyer experience, we could just end it there.
You're saying remove for first-time and
Yeah.
regular users?
Yeah, just to simplify it. And then just
Do
for,
people have an issue with that?
and for parallel structure, I would just recommend either using periods at the end of each sentence, whether partial or not. You know, all periods or no periods.
I think that in number 1, I think it got put in because that
Yeah.
S got bolded, that
Oh.
that options got,
Yeah.
and then it just got a period added in, but none of the rest of them had it,
Okay.
so.
That's
Good
keep it
eye.
consistent.
Okay, shall we move on? Okay, technology and innovation. So on this particular draft from last time, the first edit, I added the D to the word "and." That's there in the objective sentence. The second modification comes in number 3, where members felt that we needed more clarity regarding the word reconfigure. So we talked about providing ease of access. So that's where it talks about reconfiguring the server room. For number 4, it was suggested that we define what we mean by optimization by specifically referencing automatic checkout. So this approach topic now has sub-points. Before they were simply 2 sentences there, so I divided them up in the ABCD. So we've got explore innovations to enhance user experience via automated checkout, improve inventory operations, provide additional security, and then the second sentence was examine ways to streamline tasks through automation.
Could we replace the period with a colon?
Oh, yeah.
Facility colon.
That's a good idea, okay. And then on number 5, it was suggested that we describe what an app does or provides, so we did that, again, adding more clarity. So mentioning that it provides access to databases, digital content platforms, and program registration.
And could we put a colon after the
Dan?
word resource?
Okay.
I think 1 had the colon because it was, that it includes, and then it listed off those things,
True.
whereas the other ones aren't.
That's true.
You
So
know,
what
like
do you
under
like?
4 and 5, those are verbs, but under 1, those are not, like,
Do you withdraw your colons, Richard, or no?
No, you're not supposed to put a colon after a verb.
well, in 1, if you look at it, it's the colon because then it lists out the 4
Yeah,
things.
I would move
Plan.
the colon to after the word plan, and Scott's that includes. Develop IT plan, colon. I mean, we know what it's going to include because we're telling you, we don't need to say it includes it.
But then under 4 and 5, it's the A, B, C, D, or the ABC start with verbs. And in 1,
They're listing like
they're listing nouns.
nouns.
I don't think that's a problem. I don't see that as a problem.
I actually want to take out those 2 colons and put in there now, Richard.
Do what you like.
On number,
Well, no, I want to do what the committee wants.
well, if you want
Talking
to,
about colons?
if you want to have the right answer, put your document in the word checker, and it'll correct your grammar. It'll tell you what level you're writing on. I mean, then we would all save time if you would consider doing that.
Word's not the best with that level of punctuation, at least in my experience.
Right, but if it's a confusing sentence, it'll actually,
The problem is this isn't a sentence. That's not the issue. It would add a period to these.
Well, do we have any English majors that could just take this and edit it and?
We have a team of reference librarians, so if there's really a grammatical question, I got some people who can help.
Okay, can we delegate the colon versus no
We will do
colon?
that. That's good.
And I do have another question. Number 4, I don't think we agreed to optimized RFID components to improve inventory operations, to provide additional security. What I would like us to change number 4 to is explore RFID component singular optimization within facility. Because then it can say the different areas that we're looking to achieve, but it's not committing us to doing one A, B, C, or D. Because I don't think that we've committed to improve inventory operations. But the way it's written today, it says we're going to optimize them, and then we're going to improve inventory operations. I think that's going to be a cost-benefit analysis decision.
Well, we had this conversation last go-around, and I thought the consensus was that the majority of the committee felt like that optimizing RFID, because we already do RFID.
Sure.
But optimizing it to provide these 4 things was important.
Oh, I think it's grand to have those accomplished. I'm just saying, to me, almost everything can be done in a cost-benefit analysis way. If it's going to cost us $1 million to do A, B, C, and D, we may or may not choose to do that depending upon the offsetting savings. So to me, I would prefer to change the wording so it doesn't set the expectations that we have agreed to all 4 of these.
RFID comes with all these options. You can't take A and say I'm leaving B as not part of the.
It's all the above, it's not.
It's either a question of whether you use it or not. You can't say to the vendor, I don't want the inventory.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't cost any additional money to add the inventory versus the additional security?
No, it's all one, I mean, if we wanted to buy, 5 kiosks versus 1, that's where you come into the price differentiation here, but they all offer these, and we're trying to clarify what RFID does.
Because
Okay.
last month we were confused, and so this was kind of spelling it out more for us to make sure we understood what was all included in it.
Right,
The
and for
benefits,
the
right.
reader, it wasn't necessarily clear, I think the committee thought, to the reader what the benefits of RFID were.
Right.
Right, but I don't think we ever decided to optimize all the components to do automated checkout, excuse me, operations, C and D. Excuse me. It was stuck. So if we could change, God darn it, if we could change number 4 to explore RFID optimization, and then, with a hope to improve this, improve that. But like, what if we decide that it's too expensive to take, you have some RFID in place now. And which kind of contradicts when you say, wait a minute, if we have RFID, it comes with all these things. Because clearly it didn't. The components that you installed today must have some benefit.
Of course, the components we have do, but there are other things that RFID offer, such as there's an additional inventory component. We could have a book drop that has the ability to check in automatically. That would save a page from checking it in.
Right, and you can stack them on some systems.
Sure.
I did a lot of research
Streamlines.
on there. But what I'm saying is, I would like to change it, that we're going to explore RFID component optimization. And maybe we put down the different things that are under that. Because to me, we're committing, optimize RFID components.
I think when it says optimize within the facility, if it comes to the point where it is too expensive to do it, then not doing it is optimal for our facility.
Right, optimizing.
And we also have explore and examine under A and D.
Sure.
And we already have RFID parts now,
So-
so we're trying to optimize the use of it.
And if you're thinking that components mean big machinery, we're also talking about the little tags that go on them. Some of the tags we can purchase different types of tags that are like more powerful, that we don't need to buy the biggest tags. We can buy smaller tags that might be more, less expensive for us. So that's a component too.
Oh, totally understand. I just, I'll let it go. I just don't want to commit to anything until we do a cost-benefit analysis.
I think that's pretty much true of anything that's on any focus area. It's subject to planning, money.
Conversations.
Okay.
Yes. So any other comments besides colon to be determined?
Reference librarians.
In 5A, so it says launch library app, which I recently found out that there was the one that's there because a friend of mine had tried to register his child for a program through the app and the time was wrong on it, and so.
Just correcting it.
So I was like, no, that's not our app. We don't have an app, because we were talking about launching an app, and then it is our app. It's just not advertised. So I don't know if launch library app is appropriate here, since we already have an app. If it should be some other word, because this makes it sound like it's brand new. And are we basing it off of the one that we currently have? Or are we reworking a whole other one and deleting the one that's currently available?
That's a good point. I use the word launch in like the advertising sense.
Okay.
When you do a launch.
Okay.
But maybe promote or.
Or I would say we'll add more functionality than what the current base service of the app is, or, yeah, that's a good, I didn't realize we have an app. So.
Well,
I didn't either until this friend came up to me and was like, look, I'm using the app. And I was like, what are you talking about?
yeah, this was done a few years ago.
Okay.
There was a contract assigned, so it was previous director, but we started working with this particular vendor. That contract is up soon, so we are exploring this vendor as well as another vendor right now to see which is optimal. But I think your point to launch makes sense.
To me, launch makes it sound like it's a brand new thing that's coming out, as opposed to something that we already have that we're revamping, reworking something.
Yeah, so what, do we like promote or?
Well, there's actually two things going on, right? Because you said the vendor's contract is up soon. So, and you said you want to make the app optimal. So what if we optimize the library app, providing access to all databases, digital content, and whatever? And then somewhere under there, as a separate bullet, can we say something about promoting? You know what I mean? I wouldn't make it part of the same sentence.
Well, then would the promotion of it fall under like a different
Maybe
bucket?
the advocacy outreach or
Yeah,
whatever.
marketing,
Okay.
advocacy
You know what I mean,
versus
like-
under technology.
So do we like the
So we
word
have
option?
optimize, we have promote, we have, I don't know, I was thinking improve.
That's, I would say improve
Improve,
too.
But we already used improve under 5, so maybe
Oh.
optimize, yeah.
Okay, optimize.
I don't know, people think about, what do you think about optimize?
Yeah, so we've got, in 4, we've optimized, and then explore, improve, provide, examine. And then
Or
5, we have improve.
Yeah.
I say give it to the reference librarians and see, they got the big dictionaries,
Yeah.
right?
We are very limited on wording, optimize or improve. I'm thinking, enhance, user experience through improved library app.
Enhance.
Enhance is a nice word.
Enhance, people like enhance.
I like,
Enhance library app to include whatever additional functionality that provide access to blah, blah,
Or
blah.
promote. I think part of the issue was that no one seems to know that there was an app, so maybe we need to promote it.
Well, we
We're
just,
talking about moving that into the marketing.
Yeah,
To
advocacy.
the advocacy
area.
bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is
I think
pure
we're focusing on
technology.
this one, enhancing and then promoting a different approach, objective, yes.
Enhance is good because The problem we had with the current app is that it wasn't jiving with our databases, and we're still working on that issue with this particular vendor. So,
So jive, yeah.
Jive,
okay.
jive,
I
jive.
like it.
All right, we will
Jive.
employ our librarians to do some thesaurus work. All right, our next draft is organizational culture. And in preparing this draft, I used and have been using our focus area notes from May 2nd. These notes describe the terms we felt should be key components within our plan here. So the phrase organizational culture was used in a couple of the example plans we had from way back when. The ones we reviewed early on, the ones you supplied the committee. And we like this phrase. We like this phrase, organizational culture, but what does it mean for us? So I reviewed those example plans again. I looked at our meeting recordings. I reviewed our notes, of course. And then when I combined all those ingredients and kind of distilled them down, I think what I heard most of us talking about is our values. So when you condense it down, I kind of devised the objectives, the statement to read, develop and maintain a strong, diverse, and professional organizational culture that reflects the vision, mission, and values of the Lisle Library District. I'll just walk through this because this is a new thing for us. When exploring the approach tasks in this list, I began basically with our values. So number 1 reads to review and affirm our mission, our vision, our mission, and our values. So I think it might be a good idea for us to review, either add or enhance the values list we currently have. And we can do this in Personnel Policy Committee in conjunction with this finalized plan. And then number 2 refers to an organized approach to policy making. So this also addresses something we discussed in previous meetings, an ethics policy for both trustees and staff. So number 2 talks about review and update or draft an LLD policy, the LLD policies on a quarterly schedule. Develop ethics policy for trustees and staff. So this puts us kind of on a calendar for policy making. We've really never had that before, so I just threw that out there for you to think about. And then number 3 enforces training in regards to forthcoming ethics policy. So number 3 says, foster a professional environment via providing ongoing training that applies to LLD ethics policy. Number 4 refers to our data-driven decisions notes and reads, utilize authenticated research, analysis, and professional standards when developing policies, procedures, presentations, and projects. And then number 5 refers to our grant writing and alternative funding notes and reads, seek alternative funding, and then it's got the subtopics. Or A is pursue grant opportunities annually. B is regenerate LLD Foundation relationship. C is continue cultivating our friends relationship. And then number 6 refers to our partnerships notes, and that talks about increasing community engagement via organized collaboration with local nonprofits and businesses. And then 7 and 8 refer to our organizational culture notes, provide employees appropriate training and cross-training opportunities to enhance and improve patron services, and then 8, maintain a qualified professional staff. So
Regarding number 5, I think what we want is diversified funding.
where are you going?
5.
Number 5.
Instead of the word alternative?
Well, I think alternative is close, but to nail it down, what we want to do is diversify funding.
I agree.
So a somewhat smaller percentage. I mean, we're never going to get to 10% of our revenue coming from non-taxpayer funding, but we might get close to 1%. So I think what we want to do is diversify it.
Does everybody like it?
Yeah.
I took the notes straight from May 2nd, so these were the ones that we put on the little
We're smarter
post-it
now.
notes. We're smarter now? Okay.
People agree with diversified?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
I would take the annually off of point A, pursue grant opportunities.
Okay.
Well, the only thing, I understand and I sympathize with what you're coming at, is you're thinking we probably want to do it more than annually. But probably what Tatiana was getting at, we don't want to do it once every 5 years. And if we don't say annually, then.
That was my point.
Yeah, so maybe we should say at least annually.
I would say pursue grant opportunities as available. Because you can't pursue them unless somebody has announced it. And they're available at different times from different organizations.
They're available almost weekly.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I don't know, jump ball, I would say at least annually, but I'm gonna talk to you.
So we have at least annually, and we have as available. I think
One of the
they're
things
both,
about-
they're both going for the same thing, just using different focus. Do you have that?
One of the things about grants is oftentimes the condition of the grants is that the next year the money goes away and you have to find your own funding. So sometimes that's, makes it conditional to whether you can take on the opportunity. So you possibly could do 2 in 1 year and not be able to do anything the next year.
Yeah, that's a good point.
How about,
Which leans towards Liz's as available.
or as appropriate?
That might be the answer.
Yeah, because as appropriate, sometimes we don't have enough staff to make grant applications all the time.
As appropriate makes sense. Okay.
And for B, we've got Regenerate LLD Foundation. Is there an LLD Foundation?
There is. I mean, I
Or
haven't
do
had
we
any
have to,
communications.
do we have to create one? I mean,
One exists, there is an organization.
Yeah.
It has been dormant for years, but it exists.
okay.
Again, these are just ideas, so if you don't like them, they can go.
I have a question about number 2.
Okay.
With the review update draft LLD policies on a quarterly schedule. So are you thinking of like designating which policies would be reviewed each quarter? And that would be like set? Because like there's no way that you'd be able to look at every single one, right?
No, I wasn't, not that stringent, but I'd like to at least dedicate one, having a personal policy committee meeting at least once a quarter.
Okay.
That was my goal, but we can rephrase
Okay,
it.
I just was curious, yeah, so that helps me
Like,
understand what you were going with about it.
I think ILA, I did my training from ILA on my computer. They recommend that you review and update every policy every 2 years. I mean, even if you make no changes, you just put the revised date. So if we could move towards that best practice, that might be a good idea.
Divide the policies up into 8, and then review 1/8 of them every.
I mean, I guess that's what I was,
Yeah.
asking about, was like, will we designate which
The
ones?
cadence of how often we review and how many.
You know, I mean, sometimes things come up, so there might need to be some flexibility in there, that there's something might come up that we need to address and need to focus on a different policy, not in its designated quarter, but if we had like a ballpark idea, I don't know, Richard?
Well, Tatiana, you asked me my thoughts, and I would just say at least quarterly. There might be times when we have so many policies, new policies, for example, mandated by the state, and we have to get them in by a certain deadline. So at
That's
least
true.
quarterly, I think, gives us enough flexibility.
So I guess the word schedule is what's throwing me then. It's making me feel like it has to be set what it is.
Okay.
So if it's just review, update, draft LD policies quarterly, and as opposed to on a quarterly schedule,
Or at least quarterly?
at least quarterly, then it gives some flexibility as opposed to the word schedule to me means we're designating which ones are when.
Okay, that was not the direction I was going, but okay, good, I'm glad we're.
I'm glad we're discussing
Yeah,
it.
exactly, that's why.
Another way we might want to consider is review, update, draft LLD policies so that every policy is reviewed, revisited every 2 years, and develop an ethics policies for trustees and staff. I mean, if we want to try and do what's considered best policy, by ILA, that wording would achieve that.
I think we can probably fold in ILA's standard there with, and I just lost it. use the word per ILA, but,
That's what I was thinking.
yeah, I would say, in accordance.
In accordance.
In accordance, yeah.
Apropos, maybe. I don't know that I want to nail it down to be quite that specific though, because then if you skip a year, people was gonna read this and say, well, you're not keeping to your own, what are these, objectives or approaches now?
Tasks.
I would rather just keep it a little bit flexible with our intention to review the ones that need reviewing as often as they need it. I don't have any quarrel with ILA's recommendation, I just don't want to write everything down.
But isn't this something we're gonna strive to do?
Not necessarily. The once every 2 years thing, not necessarily. Some policies might not be important enough to take up time every 2 years. Maybe we could skip to the third year.
Well, but I mean, why are we a member of ILA? Why are we going to speak at ILA if we're not saying, okay, if they're trying to say best practice is that you should have a goal of reviewing, revisiting, updating every policy within a 2-year time period, why can't we put that?
We could if we wanted. I don't. My personal view is it won't serve a purpose.
What about
just makes it
everybody
work.
else?
But any other?
Reviewing it every 2 years is one thing, changing it for the sake of changing is
Oh.
not the objective.
Right.
Correct?
Some of them
I
say,
don't have a problem with reviewing it all policies within every 2 years, but that doesn't necessarily mean we change them.
Because this is a new draft and there's been a couple of comments, I can try to fold in an in accordance ILA, strive towards
Consistent with.
intentions.
I'll
consistent
recommend
with,
it by,
for our next
ILA,
go
for the
round.
cadence, yeah.
I think your point, Liz, is a good one. I like having a declaration of what we're striving for. I think that's what this is we're intending to do these things. So
And
I
Marjorie's
will-
point is good too, that we're reviewing it and we might not be able to complete it at that one sitting, knowing that it might take a couple, as Richard would agree, sometimes we have a policy that drags on, not intentionally, but it becomes difficult.
You've eluded me.
I know.
So, are we done with this point, or?
Nice job, Lauren.
I don't want to come back on this one. It's not what I wanted to express to cut anybody off. I would just want to say, so I was just wondering, for point number 3 and number 7, whether it's the opportunity to combine them to be more succinct. I'm thinking about, it's all talk about both training and development. I'm thinking about maybe say foster a culture of learning and development by providing ongoing professional training to enhance or to improve patron services or experiences. I don't know why we break these to 2 different points unless they have different objectives.
I think the draftsman always gets the short end of the stick because I'm open to everything. No, I'm just kidding. Number 3 was more about providing training regarding ethics training. And number 7 was a more in general, but I like your idea. I think we can combine them.
Combine the professional
Yes.
and ethical
Yeah.
training, ongoing professional ethical training to improve our
Do
patron
others
services.
see the same point? Okay.
Yep.
So we can do that, for sure.
My question on that point was, what is the definition of ongoing?
Regular?
Right, I mean, is that,
Okay.
I don't know. That's,
Regular probably it's better. Ongoing, it's regular.
do we need to specify?
If
Once
we're gonna,
a year.
If we're gonna do it for the policy thing, we probably should say at least annually or biannually or semi-annually.
Yeah.
Definitely once in each trustee's term.
Because that was my question, is what are you committing yourself to with the word ongoing? Does that just mean never ending? Does it mean?
It probably does mean never ending
Yes,
because ethics laws do
Right.
change.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's.
And you always need refresher courses in ethics.
Yeah. That's true, yeah, because
We could do the at least annually since we did the at least quarterly.
what is IL recommendation?
I'll look that up.
I would like to say, though, I guess the consensus has already expressed itself, but I think I understand what Tatiana and her staff were going for when they separated out ethics policy from cross-training opportunities. Ethics is so important that it deserves its own bullet point, and I see that.
Well, I think I can accomplish that with an approach statement, and then we can do it with ABC.
That what kind of training is annual ethical compliance training, and then there's professional.
And diversity and all that other stuff.
Put the training under point 2, where we develop the ethics policy, and add training at the end. Yeah.
She's better at it.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Let her do it.
We'll see, we'll have to look at it again, obviously. Any
Did
other?
you have another point, Marjorie, or?
No, this is
That was
my
the-
my point. I think my point is done here.
Okay. Any other comments from the committee in regards to the organizational culture draft?
I guess on number 6, what do we think about adding, I don't know how to incorporate this, but I had down partner with other government, libraries, and organizations. So I'm wondering, increase in community engagement with collaboration with local nonprofits, local governments, businesses, and then somehow can we learn and study other libraries who we think do a good job and then incorporate that into that? Or is that just,
Would that fall under advocacy outreach?
Yeah.
I mean, I see your point in regards to the local governments that were within the district.
That's what we're talking about, is the
Right.
local.
got it.
So you're gonna add other units of government?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other input on this particular focus area? Okay. Move on to advocacy, outreach, and awareness. And again, I turned to our May 2nd notes and then crafted an opening statement that reads, proactively promote LLD services, resources, and programs via community engagement, intergovernmental efforts, and communications media. And so for the approach, for number 1, I began with the terms advocacy and awareness in my head. And one interpretation of both of those terms is a concept of marketing. So number 1's approach is to develop a marketing plan for services, resources, and programs with subtopics that include establishing demographic profiles, evaluating our territory, using our district map, as well as online platforms like social media, determining specific promotion activities and effective promotional tools, and then effectively utilizing our brand. Number 2 refers to the notes regarding partnerships and awareness that states engage intergovernmental entities to partner in community awareness campaigns. Number 3 refers to our awareness notes as well, and it talks about exploring and enhancing social and digital social, digital, and mass media library advocacy opportunities. Number 4 also refers to our notes on advocacy and outreach. And we tap into the data-driven decisions here as well when it states continue and improve staff outreach efforts to underserved and unexplored district areas. Number 5 refers to our notes on awareness as well, and conversations we also had when we had our PowerPoint presentation where we were talking about locations. So that talks about optimizing and increasing signage on campus and in community. And then number 6 refers to our notes on training, provide effective staff training regarding new advocacy initiatives. I put that here because any advocacy initiative requires people power, and even if we're using digital and social media, we need people to implement them, so training those staff to make that happen, I think is important, so.
On number 6, I would just broaden, it's not just staff that need to be trained, I think trustees do too. Staff and trustee training.
Yeah, I think one of the major duties of trustees is to be an advocate for the library. I don't know if I read that in the state law or somewhere.
So do you want to add and trustees, or you just want to eliminate staff, so it says provide effective training regarding new advocacy initiatives?
Let's
I
keep
put
staff and trustees.
staff and
And
trustees.
And I think we've
Okay.
been kind of pointing that out throughout, so.
So are you saying provide effective staff and trustee training, or provide effective training, blah, 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 for staff and trustees?
I like the way you just said that. Provide effective training.
Regarding new advocacy initiatives for staff and trustees?
Yeah, for staff. Okay.
And would you consider on number 1, we're developing marketing plan for services, resources, programs. Would you consider adding and fundraising?
No.
Because, you know, if this is our advocacy, outreach, awareness, like let's say, I just want to include fundraising. Let's say we had something, I don't know, something here and it was like a fundraising event. I would think we'd want it to be, we'd want to have a marketing plan for that as well.
That's what the foundation and friends are for, correct?
Yeah.
Well, what if it's something that falls out of those two organizations?
And I
That's
don't think
possible,
it's-
but I'm not sure
yeah.
that would fit in our strategic plan if we're comfortable enough with that,
Okay,
throwing it in.
no problem. And then the only other thing is, I think throughout the documents, you may want to, again, talk to the reference librarians, because sometimes you use a comma, I think it's called the Oxford comma, before the word and sometimes you don't. It's
I'm
just,
really trying to stick to it.
Don't think that went unnoticed by me, I just was waiting.
I mean, I don't care what you adopt, just consistency, if you don't mind.
I'm trying.
Liz, Emily votes for the Oxford comma, so.
That's what we've been
At
going
every
with.
single personnel and policy committee meeting, I add an Oxford comma.
Then it's a good thing we're not on the same committee. That would be not very good.
Any other input on this particular? Did I miss anything? I mean, this is what I want you to do, is to take these, think about them again, and if there's others you want to bring back, that's fine. But I tried to use almost everything that was in our notes from May 2nd. If there's no more to this, our next step is to really talk about, I would implement all of our changes that happened today, bring them back to us to look at again, fresh eyes. But the next step is to really develop an introduction and an executive summary. And then I wanted to ask you all, if you'd like me to, what I can do is review all of those example strategic plans you all provided. All of them have an executive summary or an introduction. And I can come up with a draft that reflects kind of the general ideas of all of them, and then incorporate the rest of our notes. So there are things that are on that May 2nd chart that talk about principles such as like fiscal responsibility, lifelong learning, diversity, and I'd like to flesh those ideas out in the introduction because that's going to be our foundation before people really dive into our focus areas. So if you're good with that, I can draft something up and then we can really pick that one apart. And then we also need to determine how long this plan will be. So is it a 3-year plan? Is it a 4-year plan? Is it a 5-year plan? So after the introduction, maybe we can also talk about that. Does that sound okay?
Strategic plans usually also have a president's introduction, so Jay, get busy.
Okay.
So Jay and I can work hard for the next month, and then we can revisit our drafts and our new drafts, and then look at an introduction from the president as well as an executive summary. Does that sound good? Okay. Our next meeting is October 16th. This is a Friday. It is also at 6. So I will send out another reminder because it is a unique time. But that's our next meeting.
It's the 19th, isn't it? October 19th, not the 16th, the 19th?
I think you're right.
Friday the 19th.
I put 16th because I put 6 p.m. So, but yes,
Friday the 19th.
Thank you.
Friday
Yeah.
the 19th, I'm sorry.
All right. All right, thank you all. It's been a good discussion. No other business coming before the committee. Is there a motion?
I move to adjourn.
There is a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.